Modern science proclaims the theory of evolution as its bedrock, but what if this powerful narrative is also the very creation myth of atheism? Today, we unveil the untold story, challenging assumptions about life's origins, its purpose, and its ultimate author. The quest to understand life's origins is not new. Millennia before the scientific age, ancient Greek philosophers like Anaximander mused on species adapting and emerging from water. Centuries later, medieval scholars and Enlightenment naturalists diligently cataloged the immense diversity of creation, observing subtle variations within species, acknowledging shared anatomical features that hinted at deeper connections. Yet, for all their observations of the natural world's intricate tapestry, these early thinkers lacked a coherent mechanism, a grand theory to explain how the vast panorama of life could fundamentally change and diversify on such a monumental scale. The mystery of transformation remained, a silent question waiting for a new era of exploration. Into this unfolding intellectual landscape stepped a young Englishman, Charles Darwin. Born in 1809, Darwin was initially destined for a career in medicine, then theology, but his true passion lay in the natural world. He was a keen observer, a collector of specimens, and possessed an insatiable curiosity about the intricate workings of life. It was this passion, rather than any grand design, that led him to an unexpected opportunity. In 1831, a chance invitation offered him passage as a naturalist aboard HMS Beagle, a Royal Navy survey ship embarking on a 5-year scientific expedition around the globe. Little did anyone realize this voyage, intended to map distant coastlines, would instead chart a revolutionary new course for humanity's understanding of life itself. The Beagle's journey led Darwin to some of the most isolated and unique ecosystems on Earth, none more pivotal than the rugged volcanic archipelago of the Galapagos Islands. Here, he encountered a world unlike any he had ever imagined. Giant tortoises, each unique to its island, and mockingbirds varying subtly from one islet to the next, ignited a spark of profound curiosity. Most striking were the finches. On each island, these small birds exhibited distinct beak shapes and sizes, perfectly adapted to the specific food sources available in their individual environments. Darwin was astonished. It was as if each island had sculpted its own versions of these creatures, a living laboratory demonstrating the power of adaptation and divergence. Returning to England, Darwin spent decades meticulously cataloging his specimens, conducting experiments, corresponding with fellow naturalists, and wrestling with the implications of his observations. He read Thomas Malthus's essay on population, which highlighted the struggle for existence, and a profound realization began to crystallize. In the competition for resources, those individuals with advantageous traits were more likely to survive and reproduce, passing those traits to their offspring. This process, which he termed natural selection, could, over vast spans of time, lead to entirely new species. The weight of this revolutionary idea kept him from publishing for years, until a parallel discovery by Alfred Russel Wallace finally prompted him to release his monumental work in 1859. On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. At its core, Darwin's theory proposed a single unifying principle for all life: descent with modification. This was not merely about change, but about a grand interconnected lineage. It posited that all organisms, from the simplest bacteria to the most complex mammals, share a common ancestor. Over immense geological timescales, this common ancestor diversified, branching out into countless forms, each adapting to its unique environment through the mechanism of natural selection. Imagine a vast, ancient tree, its roots buried in the earliest forms of life. As time progresses, the trunk splits into major boughs, then smaller branches, and finally countless twigs and leaves, each representing a different species, all connected, all descended from the same fundamental origin. This branching pattern, driven by incremental changes and environmental pressures, became the bedrock of evolutionary thought, suggesting that the seemingly disparate forms of life were, in fact, distant cousins within a single unfolding family tree. But the implications of this idea were not merely biological, they were profoundly unsettling. If all life was connected, where did humanity fit into this grand, unguided process? Darwin's theory dared to imply that humans were not specially created, set apart from the animal kingdom, but were themselves products of this same natural selection, sharing common ancestors with other primates. This radical notion ignited a firestorm of controversy across Victorian society, sparking furious theological debates and public outcry. It challenged millennia of tradition, the very foundation of human exceptionalism, and the biblical account of creation. The idea of humanity as merely a more evolved animal, rather than a unique creation in the image of God, struck at the heart of identity and purpose, forever changing the way we would view ourselves and our place in the natural world. As Darwin's observations coalesced, a revolutionary concept emerged: natural selection. This was the engine driving the, quote, descent with modification, the very mechanism by which life transformed. It operates not with conscious intent, but through a relentless, undeniable process rooted in four fundamental components. First, variation asterisk. Within any population, individuals are never identical. They exhibit diverse traits. Second, inheritance asterisk. Many of these variations are heritable, passed from parent to offspring. Third, high birth rate asterisk. Organisms produce more offspring than can possibly survive, leading to a struggle for existence. Finally, and most critically, terpi differential survival and reproduction asterisk. Those individuals possessing traits better suited to their environment are more likely to survive, reproduce, and pass on those advantageous traits. Over generations, environmental pressures select for these beneficial characteristics, gradually shaping populations and, ultimately, entire species. The term survival of the fittest has echoed through popular culture, often misconstrued as a brutal testament to raw strength or aggression. Yet its true meaning in the realm of evolution is far more nuanced, more subtle, and profoundly misunderstood. Fitness in this context does not mean the strongest or fastest, but rather the most successful at reproduction. An organism is fit if it possesses traits that allow it to survive long enough to pass on its genes, increasing the prevalence of those beneficial traits in subsequent generations. It is about adaptation to a asterisk-specific environment, not some universal superiority. A trait that is advantageous in one setting might be a liability in another. The meek, the camouflaged, the most efficient gatherer, any of these could be fittest if their traits lead to more offspring. But where do these crucial variations, the raw material for natural selection, originate? The answer lies within the very blueprint of life, the genetic code. Darwin himself understood the concept of variation and inheritance, though he lacked the knowledge of genetics we possess today. We now know that genetic diversity arises primarily from two sources: mutations random changes in an organism's DNA sequence, and sexual reproduction which shuffles and recombines existing genes from two parents. These genetic alterations are fundamentally random. They do not occur because an organism needs them. Yet it is upon this random variation that the non-random force of natural selection acts, sifting through the possibilities and favoring those changes that confer a survival advantage. It is a staggering dance between chance and consequence, a testament to life's intricate complexity. The power of natural selection is not merely theoretical. It is a demonstrable force, playing out in real time across our world. Consider the classic tale of the asterisk-peppered moth in industrial England. Before the Industrial Revolution, light-colored moths thrived, camouflaged against lichen-covered trees. But as coal smoke blackened the trees, dark-colored moths, once rare, gained an advantage, becoming virtually invisible to predators. Their numbers soared while the light moths dwindled. When pollution controls were enacted, the trend reversed. This isn't just history, it's a living process. Today, we witness antibiotic resistance in bacteria. Faced with antibiotics, vulnerable bacteria perish, but resistant strains survive, multiply, and spread, rendering once powerful medicines obsolete. These aren't isolated anomalies. They are vivid, observable snapshots of evolution in action, undeniable proof of adaptation driven by environmental pressure. The cumulative effect of these small, adaptive changes over vast stretches of time leads to perhaps the most profound outcome of evolution, speciation asterisk, the emergence of new and distinct species. How does one species diverge into two or more? A primary mechanism is allopatric speciation, NIMES*, driven by geographic isolation. Imagine a single population separated by an impassable barrier, like a new mountain range or a river changing course. Over generations, the isolated groups adapt to their distinct environments, accumulating different genetic mutations. Eventually, they become so genetically divergent that they can no longer interbreed, even if brought back together. Darwin's finches, isolated on different Galapagos islands, each evolving unique beak shapes for specific food sources, are a prime example. Similarly, different species of squirrels now inhabit the north and south rims of the Grand Canyon, once a continuous population, now irrevocably distinct. When discussing evolution, a crucial distinction often clarifies much of the debate: the difference between microevolution and macroevolution. Microevolution refers to small-scale evolutionary changes within a species or population over a relatively short period. These are the shifts in gene frequency, the adaptations we see in peppered moths or antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Microevolution is not only observable, but widely accepted across the scientific and even much of the theological community. Macroevolution, on the other hand, describes large-scale changes that result in the formation of new species in higher taxonomic groups over vast geological timescales. It is understood as the cumulative effect of microevolutionary processes, extrapolated over millions of years. While the mechanisms of microevolution are clear, the scale and implications of macroevolution often remain a point of contention, particularly in discussions bridging science and faith. The grand tapestry woven by these evolutionary processes culminates in a breathtaking vision: the tree of life. This is the unifying concept that posits all life forms on Earth, from the simplest bacteria to the most complex human, are interconnected through common ancestry. Imagine a colossal, intricate tree, its trunk representing the earliest forms of life, and its countless branches stretching out, diverging and subdividing over eons, giving rise to the staggering diversity we see today. Every leaf, every blossom, every fruit on this tree is a species, linked by an unbroken lineage to a shared origin. This branching pattern implies not only deep time, but also a profound, intricate interconnectedness of all living things, a silent testament to the vast and unfolding story of life on our planet. Darwin's theory of natural selection, meticulously laid out in asterisk on the origin of species, fundamentally reshaped the landscape of biological science and, indeed, the entire human worldview. It was a paradigm shift, moving from a static understanding of species, immutably created, to a dynamic, ever-changing natural world. This revolutionary idea provided a coherent, naturalistic explanation for the diversity and adaptation of life, offering a powerful alternative to prevailing creation accounts. It laid the indispensable groundwork for modern genetics, ecology, and conservation biology, becoming the bedrock upon which much of contemporary biological research is built. The world, once seen as a collection of fixed forms, was now understood as a vibrant, evolving narrative, a story of continuous transformation. After Darwin's initial spark, the theory of evolution did not stand alone on speculation. It built its formidable structure upon pillars of irrefutable, multidisciplinary evidence gathered over more than a century and a half. The first and most vivid of these pillars whispers from the ancient Earth itself, the fossil record. From the dusty depths of paleontological dig sites to the hallowed halls of natural history museums, a chronological saga of life unfolds. These aren't mere scattered bones. They are chapters in Earth's autobiography, laid down in successive geological strata, confirming not only the immense span of deep time, but also the successive appearance of different life forms. Imagine unearthing Archaeopteryx, a creature with both feathers and reptilian teeth, a breathtaking bridge between dinosaurs and birds. Or Tiktaalik the fishapod, its fins hinting at future limbs, poised at the threshold of water and land. These are not merely missing links, but eloquent testaments to the transitional forms that mark life's grand, evolving narrative, revealing ancient secrets written in stone. From the ancient whispers of fossils, the story of evolution continues to resonate in the very fabric of living beings, their anatomy. The scientific quest reveals striking anatomical echoes across species, a phenomenon known as homology. Consider the intricate bone structure of a human arm, a bat wing, and a whale flipper. Superficially distinct, they share a remarkably similar underlying skeletal blueprint: a single upper bone, 2 forearm bones, wrist bones, and digits. This common design, rather than being a series of independent creations for different purposes, speaks powerfully of common ancestry, of shared heritage modified over millennia. Furthermore, the natural world abounds with vestigial structures, remnants of ancestral features that have lost their original function, like faint echoes from a bygone era. The human appendix, the tiny, non-functional pelvis bones within a whale, or the minuscule wings on flightless birds, these are not design flaws, but evolutionary leftovers, silent witnesses to a long journey of adaptation and change. Yet, no evidence is more profound, more intricate, or more universally binding than the molecular blueprints encoded within every living cell: genetic evidence. The discovery of DNA, its structure, and its universal genetic code across all life forms became a monumental vindication for evolutionary theory. It is a universal language spoken by bacteria, plants, animals, and humans alike, declaring an undeniable common origin. Scientists can now read this molecular scripture, tracing the subtle mutations that accumulate over vast stretches of time, like ticks on a cosmic clock. By comparing the genetic sequences of different species, we can map their evolutionary relationships, estimate their divergence times, and confirm the branching patterns of the tree of life with staggering precision, unveiling the molecular proof of life's interconnectedness. From the simplest single-celled organism to the most complex mammal, DNA stands as the ultimate testimony, a silent chronicle of biological kinship written into the very essence of existence. The journey of life, however, is not only etched in our genes, but also recapitulated in our earliest stages. Embryology, the study of developing organisms, offers another compelling vista into shared ancestry. When microscopic views reveal the nascent forms of vastly different vertebrates, a fish, a chicken, a human, they appear strikingly similar in their early embryonic stages. All possess gill slits and tailbones, features that will develop into distinct structures or vanish altogether in the adult forms. These shared developmental pathways are not coincidences. They reflect a common evolutionary history, a blueprint inherited from a distant shared ancestor. It is as if life itself, in its earliest stages, briefly revisits the design elements of its ancient past, highlighting the shared journey from conception, a silent echo of the grand narrative of diversification. Beyond the internal mechanisms and developmental stages of life, evolution also manifests in the grand patterns etched across our planet. Biogeography. This field studies the geographical distribution of species, revealing how life is spread across the globe in patterns that defy independent creation but make perfect sense within an evolutionary framework. Consider the unique species found on isolated islands, like the finches and tortoises of the Galapagos or the marsupials of Australia. These creatures, though distinct, bear striking resemblances to species on nearby continents, suggesting they arose from ancestral populations that migrated and then diversified in isolation. The distribution of species, the way they are clustered by geography and separated by barriers, is an intellectual puzzle solved by evolution, connecting geological history with biological diversification in a seamless, logical narrative. But evolution is not merely a tale of the distant past. It is an ongoing process, observable in our own time. Direct observation provides undeniable, real-time examples of evolution in action. The relentless march of antibiotic resistance in bacteria, turning once curable infections into deadly threats, is a stark, contemporary illustration of natural selection. Similarly, insects developing resistance to pesticides demonstrate how populations adapt under intense environmental pressure. Even human intervention, through artificial selection, mirrors natural processes, showcasing evolution's power. The astounding diversity of dog breeds, all descended from a common wolf ancestor, or the development of disease-resistant crops, are testaments to how selection, whether natural or artificial, can dramatically reshape life forms within timescales that humans can readily observe and document. These diverse lines of evidence, from ancient fossils to molecular blueprints, from embryonic development to geographical patterns, and from direct observation to human-guided selection, converge to form a remarkably coherent and robust picture. It is this overwhelming body of evidence that underpins the scientific consensus. The theory of evolution by natural selection is widely accepted as the foundational theory of biology by virtually all major scientific organizations worldwide. It is crucial to understand that in science, a theory is not a mere guess or hypothesis. It is a comprehensive explanation of some aspect of the natural world, supported by a vast body of facts and repeatedly tested through observation and experiment. Evolution in this scientific context is not a debate among scientists about whether it happened, but rather a continuing exploration into how it happened, its mechanisms, and its intricate details. The scientific narrative for life's progression, while compelling, is not without its own profound mysteries and unanswered questions. For all the evidence presented, there remain gaps, not merely in our understanding, but within the very record we rely upon. The fossil record, often hailed as evolution's greatest proof, also presents a persistent challenge: the missing links. While many transitional forms have indeed been discovered, suggesting a gradual unfolding of life, there are still vast, unexplained chasms. Consider the Cambrian Explosion, a period around 540 million years ago when, in a blink of geological time, almost all major animal phyla suddenly appeared in the fossil record. Complex creatures with eyes, skeletons, and sophisticated body plans emerged with astonishing rapidity, often with few clear precursors. It's a biological Big Bang, posing a profound question: where are the millions of intermediate forms that should connect these diverse groups to simpler ancestors? While science continues to search, this sudden burst of complex life remains one of evolution's most intriguing and debated puzzles. Beyond the gaps in the rock lies a deeper challenge within the very fabric of life itself: irreducible complexity. This concept, popularized by biochemist Michael Behe, posits that certain biological systems are so intricately designed that they could not have arisen by gradual, step-by-step modifications. His most famous example is the bacterial flagellum, a tiny, rotating motor that propels bacteria. It's a marvel of engineering, composed of some 40 protein parts, all precisely assembled. Remove just one of these components, and the entire system ceases to function. It's like a mousetrap. You cannot have a functioning trap if you remove the spring, the base, or the hammer. All parts must be present and correctly configured from the beginning. How, then, could such a system evolve gradually, when any intermediate stage would be useless, offering no selective advantage? This argument suggests that for certain biological structures, natural selection, operating through small, incremental changes, appears insufficient. And what of life's ultimate beginning? It's crucial to distinguish between the theory of evolution, which describes the diversification of life after it began, and the question of abiogenesis, the origin of life from non-living matter. Evolution does not and cannot explain how the very first living cell, with its self-replicating machinery and genetic code, came into existence. Scientists have proposed various hypotheses for abiogenesis, from primordial soups energized by lightning to deep-sea hydrothermal vents. We hear of the RNA world hypothesis, where RNA, not DNA, was the primary genetic material capable of both storing information and catalyzing reactions. Yet, these remain speculative models, not fully demonstrated pathways. The leap from inanimate chemistry to the simplest self-replicating biological entity is arguably the greatest unresolved mystery in all of science, a chasm that continues to test purely materialistic explanations. Hand in hand with the origin of life is the profound information problem. Our very existence is encoded in DNA, a complex digital language comprising billions of letters, arranged in incredibly precise sequences. This genetic code is not just random noise. It contains specific instructions for building and operating an organism, much like a highly sophisticated computer program. The question then arises, where did this staggering amount of specified, functional information come from? Can purely random processes, no matter how many eons they are given, truly generate such intricate, meaningful code? To many, the appearance of language-like information within the cell demands an information giver, a source beyond unguided natural forces, compelling a philosophical pause in the purely materialistic narrative. Broadening our gaze from the microscopic cell to the infinite cosmos, we encounter another profound challenge: the fine-tuning paradox. Our universe is governed by a set of fundamental physical constants: the strength of gravity, the electromagnetic force, the mass of protons and electrons. If any of these constants were even slightly different, life as we know it, or indeed any form of complex matter, could not exist. A fraction of a percent's difference in gravity, and stars wouldn't form. A minute change in the strong nuclear force, and atoms wouldn't hold together. This astonishing precision, a cosmic dance on the razor's edge, begs the question: is this a miraculous coincidence, an unfathomably lucky roll of the cosmic dice? Or does the universe itself bear the indelible fingerprints of a design that transcends accidental chance, created for the very possibility of life? Within evolutionary theory itself, not all scientists adhere to strict gradualism. Paleontologists Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge proposed a different model: punctuated equilibrium. This theory suggests that evolution does not always proceed at a slow, steady pace, but rather through long periods of stasis, where species remain relatively unchanged, interrupted by rapid bursts of evolutionary change, often associated with speciation events. This model offers a scientific explanation for some of the gaps in the fossil record, where intermediate forms might be scarce due to their swift appearance and localized nature. It's an internal debate, a refinement within the broader evolutionary framework, yet it highlights that even the consensus theory continues to evolve, adapting to new data and interpretations, seeking to better explain the patterns observed in life's ancient history. But can natural selection truly create anything? Or are there inherent limits to its creative power? While adaptation within species is undeniable, the question remains whether natural selection, coupled with random mutation, can explain the genesis of entirely new biological information, new structures, and new body plans. Some arguments suggest that the laws of physics and the constraints of existing biological architecture might impose boundaries on what evolution can achieve. Is natural selection primarily a filtering mechanism, selecting the best among existing variations rather than a true generator of novel, complex information? This perspective probes the very scope of the theory, questioning if it has the explanatory power for biological complexity, or if there are thresholds where its mechanisms meet their natural, inherent limits. It is vital to remember that science is not a static dogma, but a dynamic process of constant questioning, observation, and revision. Internal debates and critiques, such as those surrounding the Cambrian Explosion or the precise mechanisms of speciation, are not signs of weakness but of health. They strengthen our understanding, pushing the boundaries of knowledge. Distinguishing between challenging specific mechanisms or interpretations within evolutionary theory and outright rejecting the core concept of common descent is crucial. Yet these challenges, these unanswered questions, undeniably open doors. They invite us to look deeper, to ask more profound questions, and to pivot our understanding towards the grander implications that lie at the very crossroads of faith and reason. For many, the theory of evolution is not merely a scientific hypothesis. It is the comprehensive saga of existence, a grand narrative that explains life's intricate tapestry without the whisper of a divine hand. In the lecture halls of modern thought, natural selection, coupled with the speculative origin of life itself, abiogenesis, is presented as the complete, self-sufficient engine behind all biological complexity. This perspective asserts that the universe, and all within it, arose from unguided natural processes, rendering any notion of a creator not only unnecessary but intellectually obsolete. It is here, in this assertion of total self-sufficiency, that evolution begins to function not just as science, but as a foundational story, a secular creed, indeed, the very creation myth of atheism. This secular creed often employs what is known as the, quote, God of the gaps argument. Historically, when humanity encountered phenomena it couldn't explain, lightning, disease, the intricate design of life, the default was often to attribute it to divine action. But as scientific understanding advanced, these gaps in knowledge were filled with natural explanations. For proponents of a purely materialistic worldview, evolution represents the ultimate closure of these gaps, eliminating the need for God to explain life's diversity, complexity, or even its very beginning. The universe, they argue, operates entirely on chance and necessity, leaving no room for a purposeful designer. In this narrative, God does not just recede, he is systematically erased by the relentless march of scientific discovery. The philosophical implications of such a worldview are profound, extending far beyond the realm of biology. If humanity is merely the product of unguided natural selection, an accidental outcome of cosmic forces, where does that leave objective meaning, purpose, or even morality? In a vast, indifferent cosmos, if our consciousness is but an emergent property of matter, then our deepest aspirations, our sense of right and wrong, our very search for significance, could be seen as nothing more than evolved illusions. This perspective challenges the bedrock of traditional ethics and human value, forcing us to confront an unsettling question. If we are merely biological machines, what makes our lives inherently valuable, or are moral codes truly binding? Perhaps the most confrontational aspect of this purely evolutionary narrative lies in its challenge to human uniqueness. For centuries, religious traditions, particularly Christianity, have held that humanity stands apart, created in the very image of God. But evolution places Homo sapiens firmly within the animal kingdom, as one branch among countless others on the tree of life, not specially created, but a product of the same unguided forces that shaped every other species. This directly contradicts biblical accounts of humanity's unique creation, the intentional breath of life, and the subsequent fall into sin. It questions not just our origins, but our very identity. Are we divinely appointed stewards, or just another primate species, albeit a clever one? This challenging worldview has found its most vocal proponents in the new atheism movement, spearheaded by figures like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. These self-proclaimed evangelists for disbelief wield the theory of evolution as their primary weapon against faith. In their view, Darwin's insights are not just scientific triumphs. They are the ultimate proof that God is a delusion, a cruel myth, or simply unnecessary. They portray evolution as the undeniable truth that necessitates atheism, arguing that any attempt to reconcile it with religious belief is a desperate, illogical compromise. For them, evolution is the ultimate intellectual bulldozer, clearing away millennia of religious dogma. This brings us back to our bold claim. For many, evolution functions as the creation myth of atheism. A myth here is not defined as a falsehood, but as a foundational story, a narrative that explains the origin of the world and humanity's place within it. Just as ancient cultures crafted stories of gods and cosmic eggs to explain existence, so too does a purely materialistic interpretation of evolution provide a comprehensive origin story for the non-believer. It offers a narrative of beginnings, of development, and of the forces that shaped life, all without reference to a divine architect. It is a powerful, compelling story, but one that deliberately excludes the supernatural. Ultimately, a purely materialistic interpretation of evolution presents a direct, profound challenge to the foundations of Christian faith. It posits a universe without inherent purpose, a life without divine design, and humanity without a unique, spiritual calling. The chasm between an unguided, naturalistic evolution and a purposefully, divinely created world appears, for many, irreconcilable. This is the stark reality that confronts believers today. A powerful scientific theory, presented by some as a complete explanation that leaves no room for God. But how do Christians grapple with this challenge? How do they navigate this divide? The answer, as we shall see, is as diverse and complex as faith itself. For many Christians, the response to evolutionary theory is a firm, unwavering rejection. This is the bedrock of young Earth creationism. It posits a universe and Earth created not billions of years ago, but in 6 literal 24-hour days, mere thousands of years in the past. This perspective interprets the Genesis account as a precise historical record where biblical genealogies provide a timeline stretching back approximately 6,000 to 10,000 years. Arguments against deep time and macroevolution are often presented, asserting that the scientific evidence, particularly geological strata and the fossil record, is better explained by a global flood as described in Noah's time. For these believers, the biblical narrative is the ultimate authority, an uncompromising rejection of evolution's vast timescales and unguided processes. Yet another perspective seeks to accommodate the scientific consensus on an ancient Earth while maintaining divine intervention in creation. This is old Earth creationism. It accepts the vast timescales indicated by geology and cosmology, acknowledging that the universe and Earth are billions of years old. However, it still maintains that God directly intervened at various points to create major life forms. Interpretations like the day-age theory propose that the days of Genesis were not literal 24-hour periods, but long epochs of time, aligning with geological ages. The gap theory suggests a significant temporal gap between Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 and 1 to 2. This view accepts deep time but ultimately rejects the idea of common descent for humanity and other major groups, preserving a series of distinct creative acts by God. Beyond direct interpretations of Genesis lies the intelligent design movement, a scientific argument for a designer, without explicitly naming God. This perspective critically examines biological systems, arguing that certain complexities cannot be explained by unguided natural processes. Reaching back to concepts like Michael Behe's irreducible complexity, where a system like the bacterial flagellum ceases to function if even one part is removed. ID proponents assert that such intricate machinery demands an intelligent cause. They also highlight specified complexity, the idea that information-rich biological structures point to design, much like a complex code. Intelligent design presents itself as a scientific inference from data, not a theological presupposition, directly challenging the materialistic assumptions of unguided evolution. Then there are those who embrace the scientific consensus on evolution, viewing it not as a contradiction to faith, but as God's chosen method of creation. This is the position of theistic evolution, or evolutionary creationism. It accepts the scientific understanding of life's diversification through natural selection and common descent over billions of years, while simultaneously affirming God's sovereignty and purpose. For adherents of this view, God is not merely a watchmaker who set the universe in motion and stepped away. Instead, he is intimately involved, orchestrating and sustaining the entire evolutionary process, guiding it towards his intended ends, even if the mechanisms appear entirely natural. It is a harmonious vision, where science reveals the how and faith illuminates the why. This evolutionary creationist perspective has gained significant traction, articulated by prominent figures and organizations working to bridge the perceived divide. Groups like BioLogos, founded by leading geneticist Francis Collins, champion this robust integration of faith and science. They stress that scientific truth is, in essence, God's truth, and that the theory of evolution, far from diminishing God, reveals his creative genius on an unimaginable scale. For these thinkers, understanding the intricate processes of evolution deepens their awe for the Creator, showcasing a God who creates not by magic, but through sustained, elegant, and deeply intelligent design woven into the very fabric of the universe. Yet, within the various attempts to reconcile faith and evolution, profound theological challenges emerge. Perhaps the most somber and unsettling is the problem of evil and suffering, particularly death before the fall. If evolution has unfolded over millions of years, it implies eons of struggle, disease, and death in the natural world, long before the first humans, long before any concept of sin. How does one reconcile this with a perfectly good and loving God? How does the biblical account of the fall, which introduced death into the world, square with a natural history already replete with it? Different Christian views grapple with this dilemma, reinterpreting the nature of death, the fall, and God's role in a world marked by biological struggle. It is a profound mystery at the heart of the intersection. Another critical question arises. How do Christians who accept evolution redefine the image of God and human distinctiveness? If humanity evolved from earlier hominids, what then makes us unique, set apart by our Creator? Many interpretations shift the focus from purely biological origins to spiritual, moral, or relational aspects of being made in God's image. They emphasize humanity's unique capacity for worship, for reason, for complex morality, for abstract thought, and for relationship with the divine. These are seen as the distinguishing features, the moment God breathed His Spirit into a physical form, marking a spiritual, rather than solely biological transition. It is a re-examination that seeks to preserve profound theological truth within a scientific framework. From the initial spark of life to the complexity of human consciousness, the story of origins is a grand narrative, unfolding across immense timescales and profound mysteries. Whether through sudden creation or sustained, guided evolution, the power and purpose of God remain. His sovereignty is not diminished by the mechanisms He employs, but often amplified in the intricate dance of creation and adaptation. As we navigate these complex discussions, the invitation stands to seek deeper understanding, to grapple with both scientific discovery and biblical truth, and to find our place in God's ongoing, magnificent story. Where do you stand in this profound dialogue between science and faith? Do you see evolution as a challenge to belief, or as a testament to God's boundless creativity? Leave your thoughts in the comment box below, and if you found this exploration valuable, give this video a thumbs up and share it with those who seek to reconcile these realms. This lets us know we should continue uncovering more profound connections between our world and the divine. And if you're ready to dive even deeper, click right now on the video you see on your screen. It's a journey into the ancient texts that speak to our modern dilemmas. Blessings.